have this in the middle. Okay, I can't complain. Well, oh god. Oh god. Oh. Good day, internet. It is a beautiful Saturday right now, and I am very behind on editing all of the footage that I've recorded from working on this car. So I've really gone past the deep end. I really don't feel like trying to edit everything that I've recorded into a cohesive video, but I'm going to do that today right now. So if you remember the restoration smorgasbord video, well, this is going to be similar to that. So I'm just going to be going in list form, talking about things that I've done to this to make the driving experience more better since we drove it for the first time. So let me show you the list, and we'll go through it. Alright, here's the list of things that I've done to improve the quality of life of the RX7. So let's go through one by one. So the first thing is something I talked about a little bit in the last video, the double wide alternator pulley. Just to reduce the slippage factor on the factory belt. Since my, what is it called? The air pump, since that is deleted on my car, there's only one belt that drives the fan. And I wanted there to be two again. So the way that people do that is you run two belts next to one another with this fancy pulley. So we got that fancy pulley on there, and that's working mint. It's not squealing anymore. So our fix on this thing has persisted. Still working great, not squealing on me. I haven't heard that squeal in a while. So that's awesome. The steering wheel collapse fix. So, I'm not sure if I've talked about this or not on the channel, but, oh, shut up. So, I noticed that whenever I started driving this thing, that the steering wheel, the entire steering wheel, could move in and out like this about, almost 2 inches. Maybe like, I don't know, 1.5 inches or so. And that was extremely annoying. Like, just as I was driving around, I would try and, like, you know, pull myself ahead a little bit to do shoulder checks and stuff. And this would be moving back and forth. You couldn't fully take it out or anything like that, or it'd have been an even bigger problem. But what was really annoying is that it could go in so far that it would collide with the plastic trim. And it was just driving me crazy. As I was driving around, I was constantly trying to set this in the correct location. And also, whenever it comes out a certain amount, the horn doesn't work anymore. And also, whenever you pull it out a certain amount, the thing that is required, the piece of plastic that's there that makes the turn signals cancel, it stops interfacing whenever you pull this out a certain amount. So what happened is on the very first drive that I did with this thing ever to the Toyota dealer to get this thing inspected, the wheel pulled out, and I went, oh shit, that ain't right, let's get that back in. So whenever it pulled out, there's 2 little pins that come with that piece of plastic that are required for the turn signal canceling. That thing de-interfaced, it stopped being in there properly, and then I turned the wheel as I was driving it, and then I slammed it back in, and I shattered that piece of plastic, so that sucks. So this car currently does not have canceling turn signals, and it still doesn't have canceling turn signals. I'm just kind of getting used to it, but here's that piece of plastic. There's supposed to be 2 little pins that come off of this, but my dumbass shattered them. So anyway, I'm rambling now. So this wheel was able to come in and out. It was driving me nuts. So the reason that it was able to come in and out like that is because this car has a collapsible steering column, as many cars do, if not all cars. So that whenever you get in an accident and your torso comes and slams against the steering wheel, the entire shaft can collapse into the dash a little bit. And that's great, except for this car's never been in an accident, and mine was collapsed. So there are 2 plastic pins that break in an accident. And once they are broken, what you're supposed to do is basically replace the entire steering shaft, which is a humongous job, and nobody actually does that whenever this problem happens. So what you do is, I'll probably interject some footage of when I was actually doing this. On this column, I have it covered up with some tape here, but I drilled a hole in here for access, a big hole, and then inside there, you drill a 1/8 hole through the actual inner shaft that spins, and then you put an aluminum rivet through that, and that fixes the problem. That stops it from moving in and out I realize it's debatable that a single aluminum rivet is the same braking strength as 2 plastic pins, but I don't give an F, TBH. This thing is already a little bit of a death trap, so it's just a little bit more of a death trap now. And my steering wheel is nice and secure. Awesome. The things you take for granted, so your steering wheel not moving in and out. So that's awesome. Fixed that. 10 out of 10. Would do again. Cup holders. So the RX7 has no cup holders from the factory, except for these extremely shitty ones that are useless for actually driving. You can put a can, like, it doesn't even fit. Like, what is this for? What is this for, Mazda? I don't understand. This is, what? Wait, is the idea that there's so little clearance that it won't fly around? Is that the idea? That you shove it in there? I don't know. Anyway, car has no cup holders. I'm a human that likes to drink drinks, especially while driving. Just not alcoholic ones. No. So, this is 3D printed. I 3D printed a cup holder. I did not come up with this idea. I stole this idea from somebody on the FB RX7 Facebook group. So I created this thing. This is 3 pieces of 3D printed plastic. There is the base, and then there are 2 inserts that are just held in there with friction. And I might do a little bit of tweaking to the design because it's a little bit loose and rattly when it's in there, but it totally does the job. Get in there. So I'd like to fix that little bit of rattling that it can do, but I consider that job done for right now. It can hold regular cans, it can hold a large iced coffee, which is extremely important if you know me at all. And it can even hold those big cans, just barely. I didn't even intend for that, but you know, like the Peace Teas or like the big Brisks, they can fit right in here, like perfectly, which I didn't even design for. So, love these cup holders. Absolutely no regrets. Friggin' awesome idea. I don't have the STL online right now, but I am not opposed to just giving that out for free. Spread the love, you know. Let's talk about more things about the steering. So the idler arm bushings. So the idler arm, for the uninitiated, is it's this thing. It's this thing right here. And the bushings are in here. So on the other side, you have the steering box and you have the pitman arm that actually controls the steering rack. It's not really a rack, it's just like a rod. This moves back and forth. And it's driven from the other side, and over here it's just called the idler arm because it just keeps it in place. It doesn't actually power it, it just kind of holds it in place. So under here, I'll include some pictures / videos. The bushings, they're like plastic rubber bushings from the factory, and it was hilarious how much they did not exist in there. They were vaporized from just weathering. They completely disintegrated. So if you remember in the driving video, I didn't even really notice this, but after watching my video back a couple of times, you could really hear like a knocking sound, like a pretty loud, pretty distinct knocking sound. Into the tent from this part of the car. So I jacked the car up and I expected that I did something wrong back here with the hub and the ball joint and the blah blah blah, but no, it turns out it was actually this. So I ordered those bushings off of Rock Auto. For some reason they weren't listed under the RX7, but if I looked on other parts websites, they recommended that part, and then I looked that part up on Rock Auto's website and they actually did have them for a way better price than anywhere else did. I actually initially ordered one off of Amazon, and I thought it was a pack of 2, and I was very disappointed when it showed up and it was a pack of 1. So after that, that's whenever I learned that Rock Auto actually had them for $7 each, not $30. So got some off of there. That's done now. So now the steering is, it's not making knocking sounds and it feels a little bit better. So hell yeah. Another thing that's steering related. Before I did what I'm about to tell you about, the steering still felt pretty good, but there was maybe about that much play where there was absolutely zero resistance. Like, I did not feel like it was actually moving anything down underneath the car. It just felt like straight up play in the steering box. And that's exactly what it was. So what you can do is, here's the steering box. This thing right here is an adjustment for the gear lash. So you can loosen up this larger nut, which is a little bit of a challenge. I ended up doing it with a set of channel locks and a big ass pry bar. I got the channel locks against this, and I had the channel locks like out here, and then I shoved a pry bar down there and reefed on it, and that managed to crack the nut loose. Online, people were suggesting that you buy a 40 millimeter socket, and then you have to shave the end of it down to get rid of the taper, because this is such a shallow nut. Nowhere near me had a 40 millimeter socket. For some reason 39 and 41 are common, but 40 is not. So I manifested my will to not have to source that socket, and I just put the channel locks on it, and bing bada boom, got it cracked. Then I turned this approximately 1/4 of a turn, and that was perfect. Any more and I believe it would have started to bind, but that completely solved the extra slop that felt totally unnecessary. So now there is very little. I'm told online that fix does not last for that long, but whatever, I'll keep adjusting it, and if I run out of adjustment, then I'll replace the steering box at some point in the future. But for right now, 10 out of 10 on that fix. OMP delete. I've been talking about this for probably 20 videos ago. I talked about doing this. My oil metering pump, I don't know if you can see much. I've deleted it. It appears to be pissing oil all over the place from the delete block-off plate thing. So I need to look at that. But anyway, that's done. Very minor thing. So now, I know for sure the oil metering pump is not adding any oil to the fuel. So I can pre-mix knowing that there's no additional oil coming from the metering pump. So speaking of pre-mixing, this is not a thing on the list, but I'm just rambling. This is my solution right now, is I went and I got this 250 milliliter measuring cup, and I've been shoving it in this part of the frame, and it fits perfectly, so I refuse to believe that wasn't intentional. Definitely intentional, 100%. And I got myself some Snowmobile Castrol 2-stroke oil, and I just take the amount of fuel that I'm putting in liters, and I divide it by 128. And that is how much oil I put in every time I fill this thing up. Not really that big of a deal. So now I'm fully running on premix. Unfiltered air delete. This is a minor thing as well. For some reason, this right here, this hose, it came out and came down here and then went absolutely nowhere. It stopped right there. This actually goes, and it allows air in that bypasses the air filter. So I was driving this around with that hole that allowed it to basically go directly past the air filter. So that's stupid. It's this hole. So this was just allowing air to go from, this dirty ass area straight into the carb. So that's no bueno. So I blocked that off. And now hopefully we're actually using our air filter. That would be good. Okay, let's talk about the cooling. So, I felt like this thing wasn't coming up to temperature properly. I didn't know where on the gauge is a good place for it to be. Turns out that 1/4 of the way up the gauge is about as hot as it's ever gonna get. So 1/4 of the way up, not half, but 1/4 is good. So, I was thinking that it was supposed to come to half and that I was really underheating. So what I did is I went and I got an aftermarket thermostat from Rock Auto. Ah, God, where is this? I went and I got this piece of shit. I got this thermostat, and I took everything apart, and I put this in. I thought it might help, even though I don't think I really had a problem at that point. So this is a fail-safe thermostat, where whenever the system gets too hot, past a certain point, it will fail open permanently. Like, you have to replace this after it does that. Just after driving the car for a couple of days, it did that. So I don't know if that's a sign that something has failed. I don't think anything has failed. I think this thing just went into fail-safe mode when it really should not have. So I was not pleased about that. So after I put this in, my cooling problems were way worse. Way worse. Because the thermostat was permanently open. It was pushing coolant through the radiator all the time, and it was just getting full cooling all the time, even when the engine was cold. So it was never coming up to temperature. The reason I care is because you shouldn't be running it not at temperature, because that's bad for the engine. And also, the idle was really screwy. I could get the idle working pretty good, where it was idling at around 900 RPM. But then I would drive somewhere, I would get out of the car for 10 minutes, come back, I would start it, and it wouldn't idle anymore. It would lose heat that fast, because it was just barely up to temperature. So, to fix that, I put the stock one back in. I undid the work that I did. I cleaned everything in here. Inside here was very rusty and very disgusting. Also, there was a place where it seals. Like, if I pop this off, where the thermostat seals down here was very rusty and very chunky and probably not making a very good seal. So I cleaned that as best as I possibly could. I slapped it all back together. And with my newfound knowledge that it should only be coming up to a quarter anyway, my problems all went away. Yay. So now it comes up to temperature nice and quickly. Everything works perfectly. I monitored it with the rad cap off for a bit. I'll stick some video in right now of me doing that. I just put the stock thermostat back in there. That's the highest I've ever seen that gauge in my life. So that's something. And I have the rad cap off. This just started flowing like 2 seconds ago. It was stagnant, and now it's not stagnant. So approximately around there, the thermostat started saying, hey, let's cool this car down. So I wonder how hot that coolant is. This is not going to be very scientific. Is my heat gun in here? Not my heat gun, my heat detector gun. Well, that's good and warm. That's nice and good and warm. That's like what it's supposed to be. Alright. Cool. Cool. I actually watched at what temperature it started, the thermostat opened, and it started putting coolant through my rad. And it was around, like, it was pretty friggin' hot. It was around like 70 degrees C that it started opening the thermostat or something like that. I don't know. All I know is that after that was fixed, I was able to dial my idle in. So let's talk about adjusting the idle. So at first I was only adjusting one screw. There's no way in hell you're going to be able to see it back there, but it's back there. It's really buried. There's one that is the mixture screw, and there's one that is the speed screw. So at first I was only adjusting the speed screw because I couldn't find the other one. And the reason I couldn't find the other one is because there's a thing on it that's called the mixture limiting cap. And I have no idea why it's a thing and why it's a thing that is on carburetors, but it's this. It's a piece of metal, and it's got some clips in there, and it goes over the screw, and it basically stops you from being able to adjust it. This is my car. You don't tell me that I can't adjust shit, alright? So I popped that off with a flathead screwdriver. I thought I was going to break it at first, but I just fiddled around with it and eventually got it. And once I unlocked the ability to adjust my mixture, we were able to get the idle in really nice. So why don't I fire it up right now and let you hear it. So it actually is a little bit under temp right now, but basically, yeah, that's what it does. Can you see it? So now it no longer dies on me in traffic. That was the real problem, is that this thing was dying on me. It would idle fine when just sitting there, but as soon as I was coming up to a roundabout, it seemed to be especially when I was coming up to roundabouts, I also have roundabouts really close to my house, so it wouldn't be quite up to temp. I would come up to the roundabout, I would clutch in, get off the throttle, and I would brake, and the power brake system also drops the revs a little bit more. It would frequently die as soon as I entered the roundabout, and I was not a fan of that. So now that it's up to temperature, I've discovered the mixture screw, and I've adjusted it. It no longer does that, and it idles typically at like 900 RPM, which for me is perfect. I have no desire to lower it any more than that. Part of me really wanted to get that bleh, 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 bleh kind of idle back that it used to do. I'll insert a clip here of it doing that. Whenever I first drove it into the tent. I don't think it did that because it's ported. I think it did that because it was only running on one rotor. So I've temporarily given up my dreams on having a nasty brap idle in exchange for it idling properly. Yeah, right now it's still a little low. Yeah, that's pretty much exactly where it should be. So, there's the idle. We got it idling like an absolute champ. It doesn't die on me in traffic anymore. It stays up to temperature. Love it. Another thing, I got my new door cards installed. I talked about these a couple of videos ago. Never actually installed them because it's a bit of a pain in the butt. You gotta align all the clips and stuff. But now we've aligned all the clips and stuff. These look amazing. They feel really nice. Your leg tends to rest up about right here. I initially had this adjusted so when the window was all the way down, it was right in the way of your knee. So took that off, adjusted it. Now it sits like that when the window's down. Nice and comfy. Putting your arm on this is nice and comfy. That has enhanced the experience. Now, stop beeping. So yeah, those are all things that we've improved about the driving experience. And one other kind of major thing that I've been tackling on this car, it sounds like a lot of stuff. Maybe I have been working on this a lot in the past couple of months. I've been having fun. So, I was a little bit disappointed with the... Let me roll the windows up, kill some of that road noise. And also probably bake me to death in here. So, the audio is something that, from the video where I installed this, it was working, but it wasn't really that great. There were a couple of things working against me. One of which was, there's a setting in here that is 2-way versus 3-way crossover speakers. And mine was set to 3-way from the factory, and it made it sound really, really tinny and crappy. So as soon as I discovered that setting and I set it back to 2-way, I was like, oh my god, this sounds so much better. And it did sound a lot better whenever the volume wasn't up too much. But as soon as the volume was up even a little bit, which it is when it's trying to compete with the sound of the rotor and you're actually trying to listen to music while driving, it sounded like a phone speaker. It sounded like crap. So I wasn't too thrilled with that. So the first thing I did was I replaced the front speakers with better ones. So these are Rockford Fosgate brand, 4-inch speakers in the front. I had to do some screwy mounting with them where it actually goes on top of the carpet instead of below the carpet because of geometry and reasons that I won't bore you with. But those are in there. And then in the rear, I just got Kicker brand, 6.5-inch speakers for the rear, which you can't see because I have the trim in. So I got some kickers in the rear, some Rockford Fosgates in the front. That helped a tiny bit, but ultimately it still sounded like a phone speaker. So the problem ended up being that this thing has shit for power. This thing was not equipped to drive the speakers that I had installed in here. It's getting hot in here. Woo! It's a nice day. I'm gonna crack that one too, get some cross breeze going. Oh, that's nice. So, this thing is shit for power. That's why it sounded okay at low volumes and like crap at higher volumes. So, I reluctantly purchased an amplifier. Well, at first I purchased a big-ass 4-channel amplifier from Canadian Tire, and it was so big, I returned it, because I was just dreading installing it anywhere, and it also just felt so stupidly overkill. I think it was like 1600 watts divided by 4, so like 400 watts per channel. These speakers are like 60 watts per channel. The rear ones are 60 RMS per channel. I'm not an audio guy. If that doesn't actually add up or make sense, then I'm sorry. The front ones are 30 RMS, the rear ones are 60 RMS, and the original amplifier that I got was way too big. So I went on Amazon, the place you go when you actually need to buy stuff that works and fits for your application, unlike Canadian Tire. They had this 400 watt 4-channel amplifier, which actually makes sense for if you're just trying to make your head unit not sound like crap and actually deliver the wattage to your speakers that they require. So this was a bit of a fun install. This is the amplifier, obviously, and I spent a couple hours wondering about where I was going to mount this. There were a lot of places I could have mounted it. I could have mounted it here the way that I did. I could have mounted it kind of to the ceiling, although there really wasn't enough room. It stuck out too far. On the bottom, there's really not enough room because this is kind of a triangular setup. It's not as deep on the bottom as it is on the top. I could have put it behind the entire glove box thing, but there wasn't. It would have stuck out even more if I had done that. I could have put it underneath the seat, although the seat is actually too low, and it would have been colliding with the amp whenever people actually sit here, so that wasn't ideal. I could have put it back here, but I didn't feel like it. Like here. It was just such a far run. For how many wires there are, there's so many sets of wires. There's 8 wires in, 8 wires out, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. And then you have the remote, the power, and the ground. It was a lot of soldering, and a lot of crimping as well. And I did kind of a combination of soldering and crimping. So, anyway, that's in there now. So, it's in the glove box. I cut a hole in the bottom of the glove box so that the terminals would be accessible. This is a really tight squeeze. If I didn't cut the hole, it would not have fit. Up here, it looks like there's a lot of room, but there's really not. It kind of collides with the car, like right here. This is a hilariously tight fit. Like, I can barely fit my finger in there. So, I cut a hole in the bottom. I put some zip tie holes up here, so there's a zip tie holding it in place, and I don't think that's going anywhere. And yeah, now we got an amplifier, and I was worried I was doing all this work for no payoff, but there was payoff. It sounds so much better. Very happy. I will eventually be putting a subwoofer in this, but it's not a huge priority. I'm very happy with how all the speakers sound now. They sound awesome. Even when driving with the windows down, you can make it loud enough, and you still maintain clarity, such that I am a happy boy. So, we got the amplifier in there. I literally just did that, like, the night before last night, so all this is still requiring tuckage. Also, to support that, here's another thing. I replaced the battery terminals, because the old ones were incredibly shitty. Like, just hilariously screwed over the last 40 years of use that they got. So I went to CT, I got these color-coded ones, where you just cut and you strip the wire, and then you screw these down. Any idiot can do that. So over here we got the main primary wire. This one is for the retractable headlights for my wink wonks, and then this is the one for the amp. Now, is 4-gauge wire hilariously overkill for 400 watt amplifier? Yes, it is humongous. But I'm okay with that because I'm eventually going to be adding another amplifier back here somewhere for my subwoofer. Whatever I do for a subwoofer, it's going to fit in the spare tire well. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling now. That's the plan. So the audio quality sounds sick now. And the last thing, I got badges on it. I don't know why I didn't do this earlier. I was kind of, well, I know why I didn't do it earlier. because I was waiting for this, hello, to be compounded. So this was, a lot of stuff was 2000 sanded, 2000 grit sanded. This whole front valence thing was, this entire panel was, a lot of places where I had done paint work. Right here, this was all 2000 sanded, and now you can see that it is not. It is shiny. So I spent, I think it was last Saturday, I spent the day with the buffer on the car, and now it's looking nice and shiny. So after I buffed it, that was the pre-step I needed to finish before I put all the badges back on it. So we got that badge. We got that badge. We got this one, which I never even took off. And this one. Looking pretty nice. So yeah, back here was also 2000 sanded. Even now that it's out in the sun, I'm pretty damn happy with my paint work that I've done back here. This was a giant ass rust hole. This was all rust. So hopefully it doesn't come back in a year or two. If it does, then I'll just redo it. But yeah, check this out. This is my paint. See if you can figure out where it becomes factory paint. That's kind of telling right there. The clear coat kind of stops right there. Well, like, man, that's pretty good. That is pretty good. Alright, that is more than enough crap for me to bore you with for one video. Let's go for a drive. Let's go for a rip. Let's friggin' go. Another thing that's incredibly awesome, I was fully expecting to have to figure out a new place to put this fire extinguisher after I put the amp in the glove box. You should have seen my face when I realized that it still fits in there by mere millimeters. Like, it doesn't look like this is going to close, but it does. Amazing. Figuring out how this ancient climate control system works. One funny thing about this car is that it has no cabin air filter at all. None. Explains why there was so much crap blowing out of the system whenever I first turned it on. And there's still occasionally crap that blows out of the system when I turn it on. All just part of the genuine 80s experience. My buddy Brandon, go check him out at Brandon's DSM YouTube channel. Shout out. perfect example of me forgetting to cancel the turn signal. Although I'm getting better as time goes on. What'll happen first? Will I fix that piece of plastic, or will I completely get used to canceling the turn signals manually? I have a feeling it's going to be the latter. Because finding that piece of plastic without buying an entire, like, ignition module, probably not doable. You probably got to buy the whole damn thing. Nobody takes that piece of plastic out except for me. Because you're not supposed to shatter it. I wasn't told that. I thought you were just supposed to destroy it. Yeah. I don't blame the previous owner for deleting the AC, but man, AC is a good thing on days like today. It's hot. I'm sweating. And, oh, why do I have this in the middle? Okay, I can't complain. Well, oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, I wonder if you can see that on video. A whole bunch of crap just shot out of it. Whole bunch of crap just shot out of these vents. What if I, like, move this back and forth? Can I get all the crap out of there? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Okay, you can definitely see that. If I move this back and forth fast enough, it just shoots little bits of foam and dirt and probably rat shit out of it. Why am I doing this? I should do this sometime when I'm... Oh, God, look at my arm. Look at all that crap on my arm. See, that's a feature you don't get on a modern vehicle. You don't get 40 years of history shooting out of the vents into your lungs. Forgot to cancel it again. One thing I forgot to mention is that I have basically been dailying this car since the last video. Since I got the alternator pulley back on and fixed the squealing, I've pretty much been dailying this thing, which is insane to say. But I've really just been trying to battle test this thing to see what else is wrong with it. And knock on wood, I may have fixed all of the really major things. Like the coolant system being able to explode whenever the battery falls into the fan area. Yeah, that was bad. We fixed that. I still don't have a proper battery hold down, but it's got a ratchet strap, so it's not going anywhere. But, yeah, I just drive this thing. I drive this thing more than any other car that I own right now. That just warms my soul that my project car is working this well. And I don't hesitate to drive it to work. I've driven it to work multiple times, many times. Probably more times than I've driven the Speed 3 to work recently. The Speed 6 is normally what I drive to work, but I'm procrastinating working on it because it's pissing me off. We won't get into that. But yeah, I've just been dailying this thing and putting an insane amount of fuel in it to do so. Definitely glad this is not my only car, because holy crap, the fuel economy is hilariously bad. I don't know exactly what it is. But based on my experience with vehicles that do have miles per gallon meters, I'm guessing this thing probably gets like 12 mpg. That would be my guess. Now I do drive it a little bit hard. Well, what are you supposed to do when you're on the highway and you're trying to pass somebody or whatever? You're trying to pull it onto the highway and you only have 110 horsepower. You gotta floor it. Blip, 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 blip. This lane sucks. Getting into this other lane for no other reason than that this one sucks. Oh wow, both lanes suck. Welcome to PEI. And of course, back into the other one. Hello, officer. Don't mind me. Don't mind me, officer. Notice my nice blue inspection sticker. I am a good boy. If I don't make this light, I'm going to be sad. Come on. Come. Alright, we're good. Ah, do it. There you go. There's an updated drive for you. That's pretty much all I have for you today. Hopefully next time we fix some more shit. Thanks for watching.